Well, well, well. It finally happened. Congress, the group of people who can't agree on whether water is wet, just got together and said, you know what? Maybe the guy who thinks the Constitution is a suggestion shouldn't be allowed to start a war like he's ordering mozzarella sticks at Applebee's. And Donald Trump lost his mind. Because right now, Trump is doing that thing he does when reality taps him on the shoulder. He starts screaming. He starts blaming. He starts threatening. He starts acting like the world's most dramatic Roomba, just bouncing off walls and yelling at everyone who didn't move out of the way. And here's the wild part. This isn't some minor political slap fight. This is Congress dropping an actual bombshell on him. Not metaphorically, though with Trump, everything becomes a metaphorical explosion. But no, this is Congress stepping in and saying, hey buddy, you don't get to play Call of Duty with the US military without permission. Which is how it's supposed to work. I know, shocking. The government doing something the way the founders actually wrote it down. Somewhere, James Madison is like, finally, took you long enough. Because here's the truth. Congress controls the power to declare war. That's not some cute opinion. That's not a, well, technically kind of thing. It's literally in the Constitution. It's black and white. It's one of the few things in American politics that isn't written in smoke signals and vibes. But for years, decades, presidents have been treating war like it's a subscription service. Just click accept, and boom, you're in a new conflict. No debate, no vote, no accountability. Just trust me, bro. And then 6 months later, we're like, wait, why are we bombing this place again? And Congress, for the most part, has been sitting there like a confused golden retriever watching a magic trick. Oh, wow, he did it again. Anyway, who wants to rename a post office? But now Congress is snapping out of it. And not in a, we're going to write a strongly worded letter kind of way. They're doing something much scarier to Trump. They're writing laws, real ones, binding ones, the kind that can actually stop a president from going full I alone can fix it and turning into I alone can invade Greenland. Yes, Greenland. We're going to get to Greenland because we are living in a time where that is a sentence you can say with a straight face. So what's happening here is not just politics, it's structural. It's like the government finally remembered it has 3 branches and not just one giant orange one in the middle screaming at everyone. And Trump hates that. Trump hates structure. He hates rules. He hates limits. If there's one thing Donald Trump cannot handle, it's being told no, even gently, even politely, even by people who are technically on his team, because Trump's entire worldview is built on one principle. If I want it, I should have it. That's it. That's the platform. That's the ideology. That's the Constitution, according to Trump. And when Congress says, actually, you need authorization, Trump hears, you're not the boss. And he starts sweating through his makeup. Now, here's why this is such a big deal. Congress has been letting war powers drift for a long time. It didn't happen overnight. It happened the way everything bad happens in government. Slowly, quietly, with everyone pretending it's normal. Presidents started acting first and explaining later, or not explaining at all. And Congress, instead of doing its job, got comfortable with the idea that war is something the executive branch just does, like it's part of the starter pack. Congratulations, Mr. President. Here's your Bible, your pen, and your optional invasion kit. But the Constitution was designed to slow war decisions down. That was the whole point. The founders didn't want one person waking up cranky and going, you know what, I'm going to invade Canada today. They wanted debate. They wanted accountability. They wanted legitimacy. They didn't want speed. They wanted responsibility. And right now, Congress is trying to reclaim that responsibility. Not with speeches, not with moral outrage, with statutes, with actual legal language, which to Trump is like garlic to a vampire. Because this isn't just, we disagree with you. This is, if you do this, you're violating the law. And Trump hates that, because Trump's relationship with the law is like a raccoon's relationship with a trash can. He's always in it. He's always making a mess. And when you try to stop him, he screams like it's your fault. Now, one of the biggest signals that something is changing is the Senate vote. Apparently, there was a war powers vote that ended in a perfect tie, 50-50, which is incredible. because the Senate can't even tie their shoes without a filibuster. But a perfect split like that tells you something. It tells you that even inside the system, there's discomfort, there's doubt. There are people on both sides who are starting to look at this and go, wait, are we really comfortable letting one guy decide when the U.S. uses force? And when the vice president has to step in and break the tie, that means the Senate is basically screaming without screaming, we don't know if this is okay anymore. And that's not symbolic. That's not theater. That's institutional nerve. That's the system testing itself in real time. Because when lawmakers cross party lines on war powers, that's not casual. That's not like voting for a new flag design. That's a big deal. That's political risk. That's inviting your own party to come after you. That's getting called a traitor on cable news by a guy who sells gold coins. But they did it anyway. And that tells you the fear of precedent is getting stronger than the fear of party loyalty. And that's what's driving this whole thing, precedent. Because once a president gets used to acting without Congress, it becomes normal. It becomes habit. It becomes, this is just how it works. And then the next president does it, and the next, and the next. And suddenly, Congress isn't a co-equal branch anymore. It's like the group chat that gets notified after the decision is already made. Hey guys, just letting you know I started a war. Thoughts? So Congress is finally saying, no, we're not doing that anymore. And Trump, of course, is reacting like the world's loudest toddler in a golf cart. Now let's talk about Greenland, because this is where things go from constitutional debate to what are we even doing? Apparently, lawmakers are treating Trump's rhetoric about acquiring Greenland as a credible enough risk that they're writing emergency law around it. That is insane. That should not be necessary. We should not have to legislate against the hypothetical invasion of an ally. But here we are. And the fact that Congress is naming the territory, naming the action, naming the limit, that's extraordinary. That's Congress saying, we are not waiting for this to become a real plan. We are stopping it now. And why? Because trust has eroded. That's the big theme here. Trust. The system used to run on assumptions. Assumptions like, the president won't do something completely unhinged, the president won't threaten allies, the president won't treat NATO like a Yelp review, the president won't casually talk about military action like it's a branding opportunity. But those assumptions don't hold anymore. Not with Trump. Not when the guy's foreign policy strategy is basically, what if I just threaten everyone until they like me? So Congress is moving from trust to enforcement, from norms to statutes, from please don't to you legally can't. And that shift is what's making Trump scream. Because Trump doesn't respect norms, and he doesn't understand statutes, but he definitely hates consequences. Now, Venezuela also came up in this whole thing. Another example of Congress trying to block unauthorized action. And again, the point isn't isolationism. The point is process. It's separation of powers. It's Congress saying, war is a legislative decision, not an executive impulse. And that's important because this is what happens when you let military drift become routine. It starts small. It starts with limited action, targeted strikes, temporary measures. And then suddenly you've got troops deployed and nobody voted. And now it's politically impossible to reverse because no one wants to look weak. So Congress is trying to interrupt that drift before it hardens into facts on the ground. And that's smart. That's governance. That's the system actually functioning like a system. But to Trump, it feels like betrayal. Because Trump believes the commander-in-chief title is a magic crown that makes him immune to everything. And that's not how it works. The commander-in-chief role gives you authority to command the military, but it doesn't give you permission to start a war whenever you feel like it. It's not commander in whatever I want. It's commander within the framework of the law. And Congress is reminding him of that framework. Now here's where it gets really spicy. Because once Congress starts building legal walls, the question becomes, will the president obey them? That's where the constitutional crisis talk starts. And I know constitutional crisis gets thrown around a lot. It's like literally now. People say it constantly, but this one is real in a very specific way. A crisis exists when compliance becomes optional, when the law is clear, but the outcome depends on whether the president decides to follow it. And if a president ignores statutory limits on war powers, then you don't just have a political disagreement. You have a structural collision. You have branches of government giving conflicting signals. You have courts getting dragged in. You have the military potentially facing impossible choices. Loyalty to command versus loyalty to law. That's not drama. That's paralysis. And systems don't usually fail loudly. They fail through precedent. They fail through small violations that become normal, which is why Congress is acting now. They're trying to force clarity before the confrontation becomes irreversible. And that's why this feels like a bombshell. Because it's not Congress complaining, it's Congress commanding. Now, Trump is going to spin this as a witch hunt. He's going to say Congress is sabotaging him. He's going to say they're weak. He's going to say they're afraid. He's going to say they're trying to stop him from protecting America, which is Trump speak for doing whatever I want. He'll probably accuse them of being anti-military, even though the whole point is civilian oversight of the military, which is literally one of the most American things ever. He'll do the whole routine. He'll stomp, he'll yell, he'll post, he'll threaten, he'll call people names that sound like a third grader trying to bully a substitute teacher, and his base will eat it up because Trump doesn't sell policy. He sells emotion. He sells grievance. He sells the feeling that someone is being unfair to him, which is the only thing Trump has ever been consistent about. But behind the noise, something real is happening. Congress is drawing lines, and that's what Trump can't stand, because Trump's entire political brand is built on crossing lines, breaking norms, pushing boundaries, acting like the rules don't apply to him. So when Congress puts a legal wall in front of him, it's not just an obstacle, it's an insult. It's the system telling him, you are not above this. And that's when Trump screams. Now there's also the impeachment angle. And I'm not saying that's where this is definitely going, but I will say this. Impeachment isn't triggered by one dramatic moment. It builds, it accumulates. It's a pattern, a record, a demonstration that the president repeatedly ignored oversight, bypassed Congress, treated limits as optional. And war powers are a huge part of that because it's one of the clearest constitutional boundaries we have. It's one of the few places where the text is blunt. So every time a president treats war authorization like an inconvenience, it adds weight to the argument that this is abuse of power. Not because of the outcome, but because of the process being ignored. And Trump is a process-ignoring machine. He's like a guy who tries to assemble IKEA furniture by screaming at it until it becomes a chair. So the pressure builds, quietly, methodically. And that's what we're watching now. Not just a fight, a correction. Because the truth is, this didn't start with Trump. The drift has been happening for years. Presidents of both parties have stretched war powers. Congress has looked away. The system got lazy. It got comfortable. But Trump is the kind of president who doesn't just take advantage of a loophole. He turns it into a highway and drives a monster truck through it while honking and throwing hot dogs into the crowd. So now Congress is waking up and saying, okay, we can't keep pretending this is fine. And that is the bombshell. Not that Congress disagrees with Trump, that Congress is finally acting like Congress. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, this is all just politics, I get it. Everything feels like politics now. But this isn't about left versus right. This is about whether the Constitution is still the operating system or just the wallpaper. Because if Congress can't enforce its role on war, then what can it enforce? If the president can bypass the legislative branch on something as serious as military force, then what's the limit? And once you start asking that question, you realize why this moment matters. This is Congress stepping back into its lane, reclaiming authority. It never surrendered willingly, but did surrender through silence, and silence becomes precedent. So now they're speaking, in legal language, in binding terms, with lines that cannot be crossed quietly. And Trump hates quiet lines. He likes loud chaos. But the system isn't supposed to run on chaos. It's supposed to run on structure. So yeah, Trump is screaming. Of course he is. That's what he does when he's cornered by reality. But Congress just reminded him, and reminded all of us, that the presidency is not a monarchy. It's not a personal brand. It's not a one-man show. It's a role inside a framework. And if that framework still works, it's because someone is willing to enforce it. So we'll see what happens next. Will Trump back down? Will he double down? Will he try to bulldoze the wall? Will Congress hold the line? Will the courts get pulled in? Will this turn into a full-blown constitutional collision? Because that's the thing about systems under stress. You don't know if they'll bend or break until the pressure hits. But one thing is clear. The era of the president does whatever he wants and Congress complains later is being challenged. And that alone is enough to make Trump scream like someone just told him McDonald's is out of Diet Coke. If you want more breakdowns like this, more of the stuff that actually matters underneath the noise, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who still thinks Congress is just a building tourists take selfies in. Because the next few months are going to show us whether the Constitution is still in charge or whether it's just there for decoration.